from you and get guidance and understand more and more about how you've laid out to do certain things on this earth. And Lord, much of this week has been about the already and not yet. And we just pray that we can be excited about the already and anticipate the not yet. And just continue to strive for whatever it is that you set out in front of us as our purpose. Lord, I bless and ask for covering over these people. I ask for covering over everyone they will interact with. And Lord, I ask that as they go through processes of dating and singleness and all of that, that they not only are feeling your presence, but imparting your presence onto others. We ask for your blessing and grace during this time. We ask that anything that is not of you do not take root, and that your word be deeply rooted and set. We pray.
Amen. All right. So, you good? I didn't know if you saw something that you needed to wait for. So tonight we're going to talk about how to date and what it looks like and just logistics of it and all that good stuff. So let's dive into some reviews. So week 1 we talked about who we are in the kingdom story, right? Like our identity as being sons and daughters of Jesus and of God. Week 2 we talked about who God is and his ability to redeem baggage and self-protective vows. So we talked about when we have instances of shame, hurt, rejection, trauma in our life, how we can create a vow that can sometimes hold us back from all God has for us. Last week we talked about who to date. So we talked about dating as a form of evaluation. We talked about the questions, are they chasing God? What their character is like, and then chemistry. So that just kind of gives us an overall review of what everything looks like. So we're at this place, right, of how in the world do we date well? So, you know, we talk a lot about this dating segment of our life, and I have this fascinating stat, right, that people hit puberty around 13 and don't get married until around 30. So you have 2 decades of figuring this out. That is a long time to be running around not knowing how to do this. So it's moved from being a transition period, because it used to be that most people got married like 21, 22, right? To being a life stage where no one knows what the rules are. So now we have all this time and nobody's sure how to do it or what should be happening, and it's all very ambiguous and vague. So things that make it harder, the stress of social media. Social media is hard. When you're single and watching everyone else live their best life, that feels hard. Dating apps, super complicated. And we'll talk more about that later. Not bad, and I'm not against them. It's just complicated the process. Pressure from friends and family. How often you go and someone says, are you seeing someone? Right? Just all that garbage. I used to hate that. And they would be like, oh, how can you not be dating? And I'm like, well, I don't, okay. Just let me have some turkey and some pumpkin pie and we'll just roll right through this. And we're going to talk about this today. We don't know how to engage each other. Something has happened in the last 10 years where, Donald and I are old, right? So it's like old sages in the room. We'll tell you that if you wanted to ask someone out when we were in high school, you had to call them on their phone, that their parents would answer, that you would have to ask to talk to them. And the phone was in a public place. If you had a phone in your room, you were like a rock star, right? So you're like asking someone out with an audience. Yes, that's exactly right. Like my mom wasn't hanging up when I picked the phone up. She was got to see what my business was. So it was just, we got really used to this idea of ask and rejection, right? So when Donald got rejected, I don't know, I did a lot of asking out.
Not all of us.
Yeah. But anyway, you just get used to it. You're like, I took my shot, whatever. I'll call somebody else. Next number, right? Like, so there was this whole, there engagement piece that is not so prevalent anymore. So much so, right? Like, if we, sounds so stupid, but it's true. If we wanted Pizza Hut, you had to call and talk to someone at the store and get your pizza, right? Now you're just getting an app, and you can go to Kroger and get all your groceries and never have to have a conversation with anyone.
You don't want to ring the doorbell.
Yeah, you don't do
Set it on the
anything.
porch.
That's right. And so our social skills are tanked.
Yeah, so
And then
good.
we get into this whole idea of, oh, I sent 4 text messages, so I have this new friend. And I'm like, dude, that is not what that means. So we'll talk about this more today in depth and some different studies and just why dating feels so hard. If I had to name it in one bullet point, I would say we just don't know how to engage with each other. And it's not specifically about dating, it's just in the world in general. Like, so true story, yesterday, Donald cracked his windshield when he was driving back from West Virginia, and so we've been trying to get a rental car, we've been trying to get the windshield fixed. Donald got an email yesterday that said, and maybe we hadn't scheduled, so I'm trying to call Safelite, right? So I get a hold of Safelite, and I cannot get a real person, right? It's like impossible to get a real person. So then I call my insurance company, and they're like, well, I don't really know, we need to check the system, and just, like, it's, everything is so impersonal. And I had a confirmation number, but we got burned because we had a confirmation number for a rental car that we went to pick up. And when we got there, they said, no, sorry, it's not real. Right? So now I'm like paranoid going, we can't share one vehicle forever. This is killing me for 24 hours, right? Like, this is not gonna work. We are a 2-vehicle family and must find a car. So just the whole world is designed to eliminate social interaction. And so what's happened is when we translate that over into dating is we don't know how to do it. And it creates more anxiety and angst, and it makes it much more pressure than it was 30 years ago. Because 30 years ago, if you needed anything, you were really good at just figuring it out and going and talking to someone. And so I will say, in that aspect, dating has gotten exponentially more difficult. Yay, great, okay, here we go. Okay, remembering as we're talking, you have purpose in your life in this moment, right? We're not talking about dating as some sort of, we need to find a goal, we need to find what God has for us, right? There's none of that. Even in your singleness, whether you're single now or single again, your life has purpose. Jesus was single and 100% complete. He was never looking for anyone to complete him. And so as we start talking about dating, I don't want to ever segue over into this as a life goal. It is not. If you want marriage and that kind of companionship, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it does not make you more or less of a person. And just really staying centered into the fact that, you know, Jesus was single, and for good reason. It's hard. So we're just looking at 1 Corinthians 7:17. Nevertheless, each person should live as a believer in whatever situation the Lord has assigned to them, just as God has called them. This is the rule I lay down for all the churches. So wherever you are in this moment, you are exactly where God wants you to be. And you have a calling and a purpose, and God has work for you to be doing. I just want to make sure that we're all understanding that, because when we start talking about how to date, I don't want it to ever sound like this needs to be a goal, or this needs to be something that we're working toward. Maybe, maybe not. And you may go in and out of seasons in that. Okay, so I love this. Where is Siri when we need her, right? There are no step-by-step directions in dating. If you came here for a checklist of do this, do this, do this, do this, it's not exactly, it doesn't really work that way. So the process may look different for everyone. We date by principles, not directions. So today we're going to talk about principles of dating and what it looks like. Now that's not to say at the end, I do have some very strong opinions about how it should go, but they're not biblical. It's like Michelle thinks. So I want to make sure that, you know, first we're going to talk about principles which are biblically based, and then we'll talk about just some logistics and good ideas. We're start with doctrine. Okay, so principle number one, and I always like to start with this because I think that we forget sometimes, don't date drama. Life is too hard. There is no reason to invite drama into your life. So everyone has baggage, right? But not everybody has drama. There's a drastic difference in that. So in the words of Taylor Swift, I knew you were trouble when you walked in. Then why? Why did you just engage that mess? But I think that sometimes we are so quick to do that. To be like, right off the bat, this is going to end bad. And you're like, well, I better do this. Let's see how this works out. And Donald and I talk about this a lot. Our question for any premarital dating couple is, how hard do you want your life to be? Whoever this person is and whatever they're experiencing and how they see the world, how hard do you want your life to be?
And I think that question goes back to the baggage and trauma, right? Because you get to decide whether or not the baggage is drama or the baggage is baggage, right? Because somebody's situation, maybe someone's addicted to smoking, right? Well, maybe you look at that as baggage. But you could say, that's a lot to deal with. I don't want to deal with that every day. But when you start to say that, you're really calling it drama and saying, I don't want to deal with that drama. And then you get all the family aspects, right? That's where we usually think of drama in the family aspects. I think we probably need to start to think of drama in the interaction between the two of you as individuals and determine, okay, what is that drama piece? What is the thing that's going to... Michelle and I knew when we got engaged, there were going to be certain things that we were going to disagree with from now until the end of time. Right? So, and when you disagree with somebody, you have dialogue around disagreement, that can feel like drama. Right? That can feel like you're always angst up. So I contend it's more of those things and those outdoor things.
And I'll say about drama, the kicker is a lot of times we want to assign drama, like that person is too dramatic. But truly the drama factor is how it affects you, right? Like to Donald's point, that you may be fine with someone having a really complicated life story and family and the way they interact with you, and it doesn't faze you, right? Then that's not drama.
That's good.
So
we say a lot of the times that, and we talked, and the first night we were talking about my family with some people, and my family ranges from CFOs of Fortune 200 companies to multiple murderers. Okay? That's a lot to deal with. That's a big span to deal with. Not everybody would want to deal with that. And not everyone would be comfortable welcoming that span into their home. So it depends on, okay, how do you feel about that? Like, that's my family. Michelle has gotten very comfortable with it. Not everyone would. And that's just a fact, and that's okay.
yeah, like can you invite a pedophile into your house? They groomed and abused their 12-year-old stepdaughter. Are they coming for dinner? In this house? Yeah. Not everybody can do that, right? I'm not advocating for it. I'm not even saying it's a good idea. I'm just saying it's happening in July, right? Like this is, right? Like this is kind of,
in town. We hosted this
Yeah.
year.
this is,
For everybody.
yeah. This
Put
is
this
the
on for me,
reality.
I'll watch that.
We'll sell popcorn at the door. It'll be amazing. What I don't want to slide into is that struggle is not okay. Struggle is okay. We're all struggling. We all have places in our life where we are not completely healed yet, where we still need work, where there is still stuff going on. And so I think that sometimes when we tell people don't date drama, they just write everything off that's a problem and say that's too hard. But that's your own immaturity too, right? And so I think that we need to be able to carry each other's burdens a little bit. And it is perfectly fine to be struggling. Now we'll talk about more about what that looks like, right? But it looks looks like in dating versus what it would look like in marriage, and also what it looks like for you personally. You are responsible for getting yourself together, right? If you are counting on your dating partner to get you together, that is not a weight they were intended to bear. And they just can't do it. Your spouse can't do it, your friends can't do it, your mama can't do it. It is your responsibility to get yourself together. So dating to heal, solve, or repair someone else's hurts is selfish. If you are doing this because you need a hobby or a job to heal someone, you're going to get so burnt out, so tired, and ultimately hurt. Heal, solve, and repair is the byproduct of healthy relationship, not a reason to engage. I know a lot of people who will see big drama, big problems, and be like, oh, I can fix that. And dating is not, we are not here to be people fixers. So the principles apply to all of our relationships. I would say the same thing about friends, right? If you're jumping into a friendship because you're like, oh my God, they have this huge problem and I know how to fix it, we'll just jump in and we'll get it all healed. And I'm like, that's really hard to do, and ultimately usually ends up crashing and burning. So if you're an Enneagram person, the Enneagram 8 struggles with this. They love to come in and be the hero. They love to jump into the messiest, most screwed up problems because they're so good at fixing them. But what usually ends up happening is they get drowned in the process. So,
What do you think, River? You?
I'm a 6. I am fear-based. I am not jumping into any madness. Okay, principles. Date. Number 1, date prayerfully. We pray about a lot of things, but sometimes we're not really good at remembering to pray about dating. Is this the right person? What should we be doing? So Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. So God's going to work all things, good, bad, the dating, the heartbreaks, all of it, right? Staying connected to God is the sort of that is the key point in dating. Can we date prayerfully? So confidence in God takes the desperation out of dating. Sometimes when we start dating, we date with this scarcity mindset, right? Where we'll find someone and we're like, maybe I should just put up with that. And maybe that's not a big deal because I may never find another one, right? I worked for a doctor's office for a long time, and there was a lady who used to do the medical filing, and she was 87 while I was there, and we all called her Grandma. And while Donald and I were dating, and every time Donald would break up with me, I would be all like devastated, sad, at work, just, moping around the whole bit. And she would say to me, Michelle, men are like buses. If you wait around long enough, another one's coming. And I thought, yeah, that's probably true. Now, did I buy into that? No, because look, we're still here, and I was waiting for him. But I don't think she's wrong, right? If you are in a scarcity mindset, you might not be in a good place right now to date. You got to be willing to say, if this isn't right, it's not right. I don't need to make it fit. So confidence in God takes out the desperation out of dating. Sometimes we believe we have to wow or impress another person. I think first dates are hysterical to watch from the sidelines. Okay,
Oh my God.
like that is some of my favorite entertainment is to watch a first date, right? Because I just read a story this week about a lady who she said she decided on every first date she was going to go on from now on, she's going to order a glass of milk. And I was like, right? Because how random would that be if you're sitting across the table from someone and they're like, no, I'm going to get a glass of milk. And she said, I like milk. And she said, I just decided
I love that.
I was not going to pretend otherwise. She's like, would I drink milk at every meal? No. But she was like, this is just what I've decided. This is me. I'm just going to be me. And so, when we talk later about like the process of dating, I feel like you need 5 dates in before you really get to kind of see a person. Unless they're super committed to being themselves. And that takes a very rare person that I'm asking you all to be. There's no reason to just not be you. Eventually they're going to find out. So wowing and impressing another person I mean, we talked about before, if they're chasing God, if their character is good, if the chemistry is good, that's pretty wowing and impressing. So you
Amen.
trying to, yeah, that's very, very odd in this day of age. So you trying to show up acting like something you're not takes a lot of energy.
Well, but I think, Michelle, you said if the character's good, if they're chasing after God, and chemistry's good,
Mhm.
that's wowing and impressing someone.
Mhm.
And I think we have to understand that that's the person that we want to be, that's the behavior that we want to demonstrate, and the person be wow,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Instead of looking for that someplace else, I think our job is to show up being that. And then if they're wowed and impressed, okay, cool, we continue to have. If they're not wowed and impressed with that simplistic of who we really are, then, I mean, we've probably done a pretty good evaluation of it.
Because keeping in mind, wowing and impressing people, like, just walks that balance beam of codependency, where we start to do things and act certain ways to elicit a reaction or a feeling from another person. And once you get started down that path, really hard to get out of it. So just being who you are and allowing that authentic you be wowing and impressing, to Donald's point. And remembering that, you have to have those traits that you're looking for in another person. You have to have the character and the chemistry and chasing after God and all those things.
Which is one of the things that I think we talked about early is, obviously this is an evaluation period, dating is an evaluation period, but one of the things that we mentioned was you need to evaluate yourself also, right? And, I told a story about my buddy that's going to the New Albany Tennis Club, right?
Yeah,
And
who
we all,
hates fitness.
and we all said, okay, yeah, that's crazy. Well, what short of New Albany Tennis Club was I doing when I was there? Right? What was it that I was saying I was okay with, or that I was trying to demonstrate was really part of me, when it wasn't part of me? And that's where that evaluation, that period of time, that community, that sharing, hey, this is what we did, or this is what the date looked like, and we're like, that doesn't sound like you at all. Right? That's where that information becomes really beneficial, because the wowing and impressing and all this other stuff is really part of not being authentic. And sometimes we can only be authentic in community.
You go talk to him. Okay. So remember, God is in the equation, right? Like, it's not just you and whoever it is you're dating, right? So
No,
God is
it's
in
not
the
so
equation.
easy.
That doesn't free you from making decisions, right? But it does free you to make good ones. And, one of the things I want to frame this whole decision making about, sometimes people get like paralyzed by trying to make decisions. Well, even not making a decision is a decision, right? And so as we're dating, sometimes we get stuck. And we're going to talk about this more later, that you are not ready to date unless you're ready to tell someone, this isn't working for me. And that sounds so simple, but sometimes we get caught in situations where we're like, and it's kind of good, there's nothing wrong with this person. And yet, it's just not going to work for you. So I think that having God in the equation and remembering who you are and part of the story, remembering who God is and his ability to redeem things, and when we have that, it just frees us to make good decisions. So can we invite God into the process? That's easier said than done, and I just want to make sure that I am not trivializing that. That is super hard to do, and then the all-time question is, do we trust God regardless of the outcome? You can believe that another person, that this is the one, right? I hear that phrase a lot, which I just love, right? This is the one. And then that other person may not be feeling it. And you may be like, no, God told me. And maybe, and I'm never going to say God didn't or God did or whatever. But if it doesn't work out, because we all have free will, right? Can we trust God can we say God is still a good God, even though what I believed wholeheartedly didn't work? And in dating, I think that ends up sometimes being really personal. The two times I see that hardest are in relationship, dating, marriage, things of that sort, and then in calling or purpose, where people think God has absolutely called me to this thing, and then something doesn't work out with it, and people start to deconstruct their faith because of it. Instead of saying, God is a good God regardless of whether or not this worked out in the way I thought. So we date and initiate with clarity. Oh my goodness. Be clear on what you're after. I hate the words, did I put this on here? Yes. Universally hated language of, do you want to hang out?
Amen.
Right? Like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. What are we doing? Right? I don't like that. But we'll start at the top before I get on my soapbox. Stay tuned for my TED Talk about 3/4 of the way down. Okay, so be clear about what you're after. Ephesians 4:25. Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body. Just say what you want. If you are interested in them as a potential partner, pretend you're 30 years older like we are and just say it. Initiating with clarity. I'll be honest with you. I will speak the truth in a loving way. Clear is kind.
It's the hardest thing to really grasp. It's a very easy statement. Clear is kind, but it's really the hardest thing because in my personality, clear is abrasive. So I worry about, am I being too abrasive? Am I not? So, but figuring out the balance between, for me, between being abrasive and being clear is really difficult. So I feel like I am clearest when I'm angry, right? So I've got to figure out how to balance that and become clear when I'm not emotional. It's a very easy sentence, and I love it, and there's an entire book on the concept, but to really press into how do I be clear with somebody before I get angry.
And I'm the opposite. So Donald struggles with clear is not abrasive, and I struggle with clear is not nice. Nice and kind are not the same word. And so sometimes I try to be nice, and then someone walks away thinking that everything's good instead of what's actually true. So I think that finding your balance and how to be kind with truth. And this is self-work, right? This isn't relationship work. This is how am I able to work on myself and learn how to be clear and kind at the same time.
How many of you know people that have been dating and did not and thought they were still dating when actually they were broken up? Right? Clear. Obviously, somebody wasn't very clear in that situation.
I see that a lot, or people have a hard time having hard conversations, right? And so they just sometimes don't, which is just certainly not kind or clear.
The ghosting concept.
Even ghosting is kind of better than this ambiguous, I'm still gonna text you 6 times a day.
They probably do.
Yeah, just there's a lot. Anyway, so being you maybe don't need to be super clear about what I'm after on date 1, but I would say after you go out 4 or 5 times,
Right.
I think it needs to be super clear what's happening. If you get 4 or 5 dates, hangouts, whatever we're calling it in, and you're still going, what are we doing? Are we just hanging, are we friends? Am I dressing up for this date? Or what? Yeah, I think you should know by then. So again, this is Michelle's opinion. I don't have a scripture for this. But I think 4 or 5 dates in, you should have a pretty good idea of where this may be headed. And I also believe if you don't know, that's on you. Ask. Right? Because sometimes the other person hasn't been to this class. Right? And so they may not know and just be like, oh, I'm just going to figure it out. Or, God love it, we'll talk about the issues with men and the issues with women. But a lot of time with men, they're not going to make a decision unless you make them.
We were
Sorry, I know, right?
Michelle and I were dating, and her office was over
notes.
And we had the conversation probably 2 years into our dating that I'm not gonna marry her until she makes me.
He told me that.
I'm just not.
Why
He was
is that?
clear.
Why?
Amen. That part.
Yeah.
That
I
part.
didn't want
That
to.
part.
Mm.
I didn't want to.
What?
It was working
And
for
just
you.
to-
What was
just to be
going on?
clear,
For me.
Yeah.
He was abrasive on that conversation. Okay, there was no kindness, but that was a different situation altogether. But I really thought if I just kept being wowing and impressing,
Sure.
that he would decide he wanted to marry me. Well, fast forward, you all know that didn't happen. I had to say, get your act together. Okay. But ambiguity produces anxiety. I just think that if you know that someone is pursuing you for a relationship, it's super clear. And maybe it doesn't work, and then we can talk about how, I can't remember if we'll talk about how to break up well, but maybe. But just, if you want to pursue someone, just get it out there. They're allowed to say no. But it's better to know wouldn't it be better to know on date one than to get a year into it, you thinking that you're pursuing something long term, and then they're like, oh, no, we're just, whatever.
Hang out.
Yeah, hang out.
One of the-
Again,
one of
I
the
hate that
best-
phrase.
One of the best pieces of guidance I've ever received from my counselor was that he told me that, Don, you're not clear enough with people. You need to give more people the opportunity to tell you no.
That's good.
You need to give more people the opportunity to tell you no. And the only way you do that is by expressing what you want, right? If you don't express what you want, there's no reason for anyone to tell you yes or no. He's like, you gotta give people the opportunity to tell you no you want.
I think that we're super good sometimes about giving caveats to everything. Like, I don't know, I really, really want this, but it'll be fine, or I don't need to say that, or if I don't get it, it's okay. And so maybe he'll just organically figure out what my wants and needs are. That has never happened, right? Like, we have been together for a long time, and if I want or need something, he knows me better than anyone and still doesn't know. It is my job to tell another person what I need or what I want. And it is up to him to make a decision on whether or not he can or will provide that.
You can find that tendency in your personality in your prayer life.
That's good.
Michelle more so than I, when she prays, it's like, dear Heavenly Father, this, but only if it's in your will. So as soon as she goes there, what she's doing is she's prepping and providing a way out.
I give God an out all the time.
So if she gives God a way out, guess what she does with people on earth?
I'm always giving God an out. That, oh God, I really want this. Help me with this. I want to become this. But, and I spiritualize it, right? Like, it sounds very good on paper. Only God if this is in your will. But what I'm really saying is, I'm not sure I'm worthy. I don't want to be disappointed in you. And so I'm going to just make this so it won't hurt. And that's not how we're intended to have our relationship with God. We are intended to ask boldly and specifically.
Yeah, I needed to hear
Sermon.
Yeah.
that.
But don't give God an out. Now we have to trust God regardless of the outcome, right? So there's this teeter-totter of it. But when you pray, always giving God an out, it's just, He's not impressed by that, right? God does miraculous things in our lives so that we see the power of who He is. And so when we're always saying, God, we want this, but if it's not in your will, then, well, then what is He's like, what am I going to do there?
I was going to do something that wasn't in my will because you asked for it.
Yeah. Right? So just don't pray and give God an out. God does not even need an out. He is perfectly capable of handling that on His own.
So, but my point is, if you find in your prayer life you're doing that, I can assure you, in your relationships here on earth, you're doing that.
Yes. As a side note, with that in mind, our relationship with Jesus is just a reflection of how we interact with others. And the reason that we talk about God being the center relationship in your life is because that mirrors so much of how all of our other relationships go. If you have a tendency or feeling toward unworthiness with God, I would bet the house that you have a tendency of feelings of unworthiness with other people. And it puts you in a position of being an underdog and hiding and not asking for what you need and what you want. And so practice it when you're praying. Be bold. Pray specific prayers that are measurable. And I know this sounds sort of scientific, but I think that it's super helpful to keep a prayer journal that'll say, I prayed for this. And then you can look back in 3 months sometimes and you're like, oh, that was answered and that was answered. And I'm still waiting for this, because sometimes we forget. And that's perfectly natural, right? Because our prayer lives are very personal and sometimes really emotional and things of that sort. But that relationship with Jesus directly reflects so much of what our relationships here on earth look like. And reminding ourselves again, the reason we start this class with who you are in the story is that God wants what's best for you. And that he's just waiting to give it to you.
When Michelle says specific, this is something that, oh gosh, about 10 years ago, we really pressed in. I'll tell you a real quick story. We really pressed in, really encouraged people, and I encourage everyone to pray specifically. We were in a situation where my son was getting ready to go to college, and he was an athlete and was looking for scholarship. And truly, we needed, his mom and I needed a certain dollar scholarship, enough money to make it work. And what we agreed to is we wrote out a prayer with a specific dollar amount in it. She and I agreed that we would pray this. This is the last thing we agreed on. We agreed that we would pray this. And the day before National Signing Day, he got an offer within $100 of that number. And at that point, I just started saying, and I do it with the boards I'm on, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, churches, everything. I just believe wholeheartedly that when you give God a big giant bucket prayer, he knows what you need. He's going to provide that, right? But if you can be specific, because I can now tell that story as a testimony. That he specifically addressed this instead of, hey, we were praying for a scholarship and he came through. Well, that's a testimony. But he nailed the number we were specifically asking for.
And also, always remembering we don't believe in a vending machine God.
Absolutely.
Right? It's not like because I pray that I want a job that makes, $340,000 a year, that God's going to be like, well, answer that one, right? Like it doesn't work that way either, but I do think that there are times and places where God will answer very specific prayers so that you can tell the story. And
There's been other times when we prayed specific things that didn't.
yeah, or
That
they didn't
doesn't-
get answers at all.
Right,
Yeah.
and that doesn't mean that specificity
Mhm.
in your prayer life isn't important.
Well, because I think it's more about you than it is about God. And it's more about you asking for what you want than it is about how God answers it. And I will translate that into relationships. You asking for what you need and what you want, that's the obedience for you and on your part. The person answering that call or saying yes or no, that's not your business, frankly. Right? When I ask Donald and say, hey, I need you to be home by 6 o'clock tonight, my entire obedience is saying to him, I need you for X, Y, and Z. His response is none of my business. He may say yes, he may say no. He may say, I can't do it tonight, but I could do it on Thursday, right? Like, the obedience is personal. And so we talk about praying specific prayers because that is a personal spiritual maturity move, not because we are looking for a specific outcome. The reason I don't like hanging out, I don't know how to get dressed. Am I dressing for a date or am I wearing, sweatpants because we're just hanging out? I'm unclear. When we're talking about ending it, if you want out, it's okay. You do not have to stay in a relationship because you think that God called you to something, or you think this is a pretty good girl and I really don't want to let this one go because I don't know if there'll be another one. I trust God with my life. I trust God with your life. And if it's not going to work, it's not going to work. If you want out, you can leave. And I love this phrase. I use this all the time. You do not have to explain why. Adults inform, children explain. So as an adult, all you can say is, I'm really sorry this isn't going to work. You do not have to say, see, the thing is that I'm not really ready to date, and then, we went to the second date, and I just felt uncomfortable, and I got triggered because of the macaroni and cheese, or whatever, right? Like, I think we have a tendency to just always want to have someone say, oh, I absolutely understand where you're coming from. You're right. Where most of the time when we're getting out of dating relationships, one person's going, no, you're absolutely wrong. And so the less explaining, the better. I think that when someone breaks up with you also, really good to go to that accountability group or that core group and say, I really thought we were headed somewhere. And I was really convinced that this was going to be something unique and special. Help me see what I'm not seeing. Right? That's how we learn, and that's how we get better. But I think that in breakups, clear is kind. Simple, clear language. You do not have to write a dissertation. We'll get into more about why that makes it complicated sometimes too, though. Uh-oh. Quit on me now. Okay, you need to date with autonomy. So Christians are meant to love everyone, right? That's our calling. We are sent here to love everyone. But you're not yoked with everyone. Right? So there's a difference between loving everyone and being yoked with everyone. So the Bible is clear about how we treat others, and then there's a different calling for how we treat spouses. Right? That's the only caveat. We want to create another category for how we treat someone we're dating or in love with, and there's not a category. They're just an other. You're not married to them, so we have the same calling for that person we're dating as we would with the rest of the world, is to love them and respect them and treat them with dignity. So we want to create interim space between loving everyone and covenant, and there just isn't that space. You're either out of covenant and you're just required to love in the same way that you love everyone, or you're in covenant, and that's a whole different class, and you can come to my TED Talk on that later. Because what happens when someone gets sick that you're dating or in love with, needs financial assistance, or is managing life-altering decisions? That's not yours to be a part of. Do I just want to assume some responsibilities without the complete nature of till death do you part? You end up in a situation where you're trying to make life-altering decisions where you have ultimately no say and no responsibility. And these 2 points are part of what makes breakups super hard. When you start to enter into making life-altering decisions with another person you're not in covenant with, it changes the game a little bit. And so then that breakup doubles down.
This is where Michelle and I, as we told our story, we broke up over and over and over and over. Because we were talking about starting a business. And she was advising and being part of those decisions. She could be a sounding board, right? But there's a difference with maybe being a sounding board and then advising and being engaged in the decision-making process. We would go and negotiate car deals together, right? So when you looked at us, you could not tell whether or not we were in or out of covenant. So what happened is that we were out of covenant, living and making decisions as if we were in covenant, which makes it extremely messy. And things that are in covenant, I think Michelle has some of them up there. financial things, life decisions, housing, all those type of decisions and conversations are typically those covenant things that you would set, you'd meet with, you know, you have a family meeting, right? The things that you would think, you know, this would be a good family meeting between a husband and wife. That's probably an indication of it as being a covenant conversation.
When we were dating, I bought a car, and I did not want to buy the car. So it was a new car. It wasn't an expensive car. It was a Hyundai Elantra, but I bought a car. And Donald was telling me, no, this is a good move. You should buy that car. This is a good decision for you.
I had no skin in the game.
And in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, no. He is eventually going to marry me and help me make that car payment. Well, let me just say that car was paid off before we got married, right? Like that never happened. It never happened. But in my head, it was confusing. We were too intertwined, but not in covenant. And so him being before me, being this, you know, strong, amazing man,
Amen.
saying, you need to buy this car, I was like, oh, he's going to help me figure this out. Did he? No. He did not. Right? And so just, you have to guard yourself against jumping in. And I think that sometimes when we find people we're in love with, when we're dating, we want to jump in really fast because we've got all these hormones running, right? And we're like, oh, this is going to be amazing. And it will be when you get there, right? But when you jump in too fast, it can get very confusing.
Well, the same thing, just so that I'm not the bad guy here, the same thing about me starting a business, right? Because you had a W-2 income.
I did.
You had income all the time.
All my bills were paid.
And then when I started a business, I was duct taping my windows because I didn't have money to pay for the power to go up and down. And I had to be money, you know? So, start a business, you need to start a business, you should be this, you get, okay. And then, if there's no money that comes in this week, guess who's got to figure it out?
That's a true statement.
That is
Exactly how it went down.
She had a car payment to make.
And the thing is, because we were so screwed up, I would have given him money.
Sure.
Again, not healthy and not advisable. And I didn't, so things that I learned about Donald, just more of our dating story. So we had this particular weekend. It was my birthday. And Donald's car, the window got stuck in a down position. So I'm doing research on YouTube because that's how you fix everything, by the way. You need to know YouTube will teach you how to do it. Figure out how to fix the window, but we were supposed to go see an off-Broadway performance of The Lion King in Cleveland.
Yep.
And so we took my car, you know, the one that I bought and I didn't really, yeah. So we took my car up and then we came home and I was like, hey, do you want to go to dinner? He didn't have any money, right? It's my birthday. And so I was like, no, I'll pay. And so we went to like a nice steak restaurant. He was so irritated, right? Like that was absolutely unacceptable for him, for me to buy dinner. I totally took something over and took something away from him by offering to do that. And really was gloating my finances over him, but did not know it at the time. Because we were too involved. We were too close, but not in covenant. And so me paying for that dinner was a huge thing between us for a minute. Yeah. The memories years ago.
It's a tough trip to Cleveland.
That was a tough trip to Cleveland back. Yes. So we're still dating with autonomy. There's tension in it, right? It's not supposed to be comfortable because you're not supposed to stay there. So there's no life choices that are made together. Just, if we can just bottom line that, no life choices that are made together. It's uncomfortable because you're not meant to stay there. And don't enmesh your life before you're ready to commit. The more you enmesh your life before you are in covenant, the harder it is to, number one, really get in covenant. Because then you start looking around going, well, now what?
What's the change?
Yeah. Well, if you've been playing house for 2 years, then the change is not a lot.
It's part of the reason guys won't make a decision until they have to.
Yep. There should be tension though. I want to make sure everyone knows that. It should be really uncomfortable. For a reason.
The only thing I will say to that, Michelle, is I will always go back and make a distinction between dating and being single, right?
Yeah, yes. Yes. This is all dating, but
When you say it's uncomfortable because you're not meant to stay there, what we're talking about is you're not meant to stay in dating. Right?
not in singleness.
Really want to be clear to
Yeah.
make that distinction.
You can stay single forever. Okay.
And if you can,
Listen, actually. So it's complicated. And it kind of should be complicated. It's complicated because it is a process. You're not supposed to camp out there. We'll talk about obstacles. So tons of studies right now on men with porn, pot, and video games. And why it is difficult generationally and what's happened with men who have desensitized themselves with porn, pot, and video games. I am not really opposed to video games. I am not going to weigh in on the pot situation. I will say porn is destructive. Women have their own issues. They're guarded, cautious, and self-protective. So we have men who have learned to isolate and self-soothe with porn, pot, and video games, and women who all of a sudden think they deserve the world. There's a problem when we try to engage in this, right? And so there's tension there, and it's complicated, and I think that we have to let down our guard in a safe way as women, and that men have to come out of their shell and say, porn, pot, and video games isn't enough. Don't you get an AI girlfriend? I see all these stories right now that I'm like, what is happening in the world? So don't enmesh your life before you're ready to commit. I'm just gonna keep dragging that home. Breakups, things that make breakups harder. Sex makes breakups harder. You know, we talk about those like severe heartbreaks. I have counseled a lot of people, coached a lot of people in my day who have lost children, who have had devastating things happen to them, traumatic events, domestic violence, all sorts of stuff. No one cries harder than a bad breakup. Like there is just something life-changing about a bad breakup, especially an unexpected one. No one cries harder. The hormones of connection that have to be broken. You literally have to detox. Enmeshing lives makes breakups harder. If you have made a life decision thinking this person is going to cover your car payment or help you run a business or cover your rent, and now you suddenly have to figure it out on your own. Now you have this like hormonal break, right? And you're losing your companion, and now you have to figure out life decisions. It's a mini divorce. And it's messy. All of those things make breakups harder. Hormones lie. Just out and out. It's the same way when people say, like, I don't feel the presence of God. Okay, I'm sorry, right? Like, I get it. You may not always feel the presence of God, right? So when someone comes to me and says, I fell out of love with my husband, love is a choice. And you're not going to have those high mountaintop moments all the time, right? They'll be there, they come and go, right? But me waking up every day and choosing to love Donald is not because every day I see him walk across the room and want to give him a standing ovation, right? Like that's not exactly how it works. So hormones lie. Don't depend on your hormones or feelings to dictate how you move throughout your relationships. The tension forces you to make faster decisions. The reason it's uncomfortable is because you're not supposed to stay there, and you need to make a decision. Are we moving forward or are we getting out? So Jesus always leads with grace. And remembering that he has grace for you, he has grace for the relationship, and he has grace with the other person.
You know, I don't know, this has been on my mind a little bit lately, and I don't know if it fits here or not. But in relationships, and we talked about baggage and all of that, there seems to be so much shame that people run around with. And I've really been looking at the Bible and looking at scriptures, and there were a lot of people that Jesus kind of said were not great people, right? I don't know that at any point we can see that he shamed anyone, right? I don't know that we can see that even like Super Church, we were doing the Good Samaritan, right? And when the dude asked Jesus the question, trying to be all uppy with him, Jesus really didn't shame him. He just said, So I think that there's something to this feeling of shame, this fear of shame being something that we've created out of our self-protective vows, and it's not of God, not of Jesus. So because he and I'm studying, so I could be wrong, but I can't find one time where he even shamed the Pharisees.
No.
He challenged them. He didn't shame them. So some way, somehow, Jesus always leads with grace is really important to us, not only in the way that we receive feedback from others instead of feeling shame, but also in the way that we interact with others and being grace-filled instead of invoking or creating shame on someone else. So, like I said, I'm studying this right now. It's really on my heart. And I think this whole shame cycle is really disrupting our dating patterns, our lives, and it's just not scriptural.
That's good.
While we're on that topic, I just want to say I hound a lot about premarital sex because I think it clouds your judgment. It is not a bigger sin than any other sin, right? I think that the church in general talks about premarital sex a lot because most people are married, and so it's not the hot topic. But it's forgivable. It's not bigger than other sins. So if this is an experience that you have had in your life, right? There's forgiveness for that. There are consequences of it, right? Eventually you're going to have to go to your spouse and relay a history, right? However, it's not an unforgivable sin. God isn't like, oh man, that one, you didn't do that sin. That's horrible, right? So I just want you to know there's no shame involved in that. It's part of my story. It's part of Donald's story. We are learning to move past it, to forgive ourselves, to continually forgive ourselves, right? But I don't want to put any extra burden on that as being sinful. When I talk about it in this class, I talk about it complicating things, right? Is it a sin? Do I believe it's a sin? I do. I'm not pretending otherwise in that, but it's not a heavier weighted sin than anything else.
We have, one of the first things we bought in his house was a scale right here, as a reminder to us that there's no sin greater than another. So if I decide to just completely ignore Michelle and walk around the house as if she's not here, or if I decide to step out of the marriage, they weigh the same. They have different consequences. Different consequences, but they weigh the same.
Yeah. So I want to make sure that, I'm not sure I say that enough. There is no shame in that. Different
And
consequences.
it's no greater than anything else.
No greater. Jesus didn't say on the cross, oh, this is just for big sins only. Not for the white lies, right, or whatever. So just keeping in mind, sin is not weighted. More principles. We need to date graciously. We need to be kind. I will treat you with courtesy. I will not put you in a position where I mislead you as to my level of my commitment or my intent.
Which takes a ton, I think, and I'll say this, I think for guys, takes a ton of reflection. I don't know about women, because I think women are ton of intentional thought by a guy to really think about, okay, my level of commitment and my intent. Because I mean, we wake up and we just go through the day most days. We have 1/10 of the thoughts in our head during the day that you guys do. We use 1/10 of the word. We're just wired differently, not bad, but differently. So it's really spending a lot of time thinking about it. But I can tell you, Michelle could have asked me my intent and my commitment, and the answer would be like, I don't know. A week before we got married, I don't know. Because it's not something I spend a lot of time thinking.
Unless, and
Something
I'm gonna, well, or there's this caveat, right? Again, very stereotypically, but if a guy is trying to get a woman to have sex with him, sometimes the narrative of the story changes. Now, there may not be a blatant lie, but it may sound different as to his level of contentment and commitment. Gotta be clear. You gotta ask those follow-up questions. And that's why sex complicates things, right? Because sometimes a guy or a girl is looking to pursue that. And so then, oh no, I adore you, we're gonna be in this, I can't imagine my life without you, right? Well, really? I don't know. I could say some crude things that I say during individual counseling, but I won't right now. Okay, principles. Dating community. We hound on this a lot, and I'm gonna just keep hounding on it. Doing evaluation and isolation can lead to self-deception. So Obadiah 1:3, the pride of your heart has deceived you.
Amen.
You who live in the clefts of the rocks and make your home on the heights. We are just really bad at being able to analyze our own lives. Just really, really bad at it. Proverbs 11:14, for lack of guidance, a nation falls, but victory is won through many advisors. You need to get good community around you to help you date well. And sometimes it's because you're too aggressive, and sometimes it's because you're too kind, right? Both sides need community. There's safety in community. In Song of Songs, there are 4 people who talk in Song of Songs. So we have the husband, we have the wife, we have God who says something, one sentence, and then we have her friends, right? Her friends give approval. There's a reason that's in there. Okay. Date patiently. So you want to evaluate as fast as you can, but as slow as you must. Again, there's tension there, right? You don't want to drag it on any longer than it needs to go. But if you need more time to figure it out, you take it. Don't skip steps. You don't get to just do something because you're in a hurry and a spring wedding would be nice, right? Like you can't skip parts of the evaluation process. Use your time to evaluate your potential partner well. God is not in a hurry. Whenever we start to feel rushed, I always tell people you need to really sit down and question that. If you feel like you are up against a wall to make a decision, that's when you need to take a step back and say, is God in a hurry?
We had a premarital couple recently that we were posting that they felt like they were in a hurry because they were fearful of some political ramifications or some political changes to some rules. So they felt really pressed to do something quickly. And we really wanted them to press into, yeah, we understand those factors, but have you done the necessary work? And as long as you've done the necessary work, and that's cool, but you can say that, yeah, we were going to wait until, I don't know, December, but because of these things, we're going to do it earlier. But to say we're going to do it earlier because of that's a little concern.
And I think the husband of that couple was at our house on Thursday, and they're going through a hard time right hard time, and they are super grateful that they took the time to do all the hard work. Because they've been married less than a year, and things are, the bottom's falling out a little bit. And so just super grateful that they didn't rush that. Okay, so let's talk about just principles and good practices. So online dating. Let's talk about online dating. So dating apps, all of that. Again, this is all Michelle, right? Michelle's opinion.
So
Don't
that's
keep
why it says good practices.
good practices, right? It's not a principle, it's a practice. Don't keep it online. I think online dating has amazing things to offer you, right? You have access to tons of people all over the place, right? More people than you could meet if you just went to a, bowling event. However, and it's not that I don't think that you should text or engage people online. I do think that. My rule of thumb is 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, I need a face-to-face meeting with you. And if that's not possible because of whatever, maybe this doesn't work. Now, let's say they live in California and you feel really connected. Well, let's Zoom, right? But then in 4 weeks, I need a face-to-face meeting. Online dating, texting, if it goes on for more than 2 weeks, they're probably bored. And so are you, right? So you're laughing at me, but it's true. Don't keep it online. It's a great tool to meet new people that you wouldn't otherwise know, but you need to get in person. Enlist a dating buddy. I feel like Toy Story. You need a moving buddy. You need someone you trust fully to be able to say to you, what are you doing? Right? Because sometimes we do things that we wouldn't otherwise do because we're sad, lonely, need someone to go to a concert with, right? Or we allow someone to treat us in a way that may not be good, and we always think we can handle it. So you need a friend to say, Or for me, my situation was, you just got out of a relationship that looked identical to this. And now you have jumped right back into the same thing with a different name. What are we doing? So I think having a dating buddy is good. You have to get out there. You need to join a club, do a community group, softball team, kickball, volleyball. They have trivia nights, and bingo evidently is the big hot thing right now, right? Like, I don't understand the bingo thing, but that's all right. I'm trying. Get out there. I think that sometimes we think, I want to date, I want to meet people, and I'm gonna go home and watch, 4 seasons of The White Lotus. Right? That's great, but you're probably not gonna meet anybody that way. And so, again, we talked about earlier, we're not good at engaging, right? It's a different sort of rule book, but I think that the more you can get out there and practice, and you can practice just by going and paying for your gas in person, right? Go talk to the cashier. Learn how to have random conversations with strangers. And I would say lead with compliments. If you want to practice this, you go to Kroger, you check out in a for real line with a real person, and you say, oh my God, I love that shirt. People love to talk about themselves, right? They love it. And so if you need to practice being engaging, that's a great way to do it. Go put money in the bank, with an actual banker, not at the ATM, right? Practice doing those things. Go order food, not at a kiosk. And we can't grow that muscle unless we practice it. And so then that way you can go to bingo night and you go to get your club soda while you're having bingo, and you can say to the person next to you, God, I love those earrings. Where did you get those? And people generally like to talk, right? If you're engaging, people will engage back with you. But it's a skill and it's a muscle, and we need to learn to practice it.
One of the things that we've done with some of my employees that go to church because they struggle with this and it affects them in their workplace, right? We've asked them to, and they've talk to somebody different, because there's no place safer
Mhm.
than to make contacts and to say hi to somebody.
That's good.
In the church and at Cross and Crown, we do a great job of passing the peace, and that is a great time to exercise that muscle.
And if you're having an off week and you don't feel it, okay, right? Like again, there's nothing wrong with not doing it. But if we're really looking to build that skill so that we can get out there and figure out how to date well, you got to practice. And practicing in safe environments with cashiers and random people, and go get your car washed and have a 3-minute conversation with a guy who's putting your credit card in the machine, right? Just practicing that skill is super important. Be willing to be uncomfortable. We are just so desensitized to being uncomfortable, where we will do anything to discharge discomfort. Anything. And if that means being home alone all the time, every day, because that's the only place you can get peace or the only place you feel comfortable, we're willing to sacrifice anything to get it. And the reality is that the level of your growth is directly correlated with your tolerance for discomfort. In dating, in your finding your purpose and calling, God will never call you to something you're comfortable with. Because if you can do it without Him, then why is He calling you to do it? Whatever God calls you to do should scare the crap out of you. It should feel overwhelming. And that's for a reason. But certainly in dating, marriage, your calling and purpose, your job, parenthood, right? Your level of growth is directly correlated with your tolerance for discomfort. So don't hide. I think that if I could summarize when I was dating, my number one mistake is that I hid. I would go do things like go sit at bars, go meet people that I would never tell anyone I was meeting. Super dangerous. I would date people that I kind of knew this is kind of a train wreck. I know this isn't going to work. And I just wouldn't tell anyone. I just hid my whole life. Share what you're doing and who you're.
There's an old saying that two things grow in darkness: sin and mushrooms.
Amen.
Yep. So share what you're doing and who you're interested in with someone you trust. If you have to hide it, right? Like if there's a part of you that's like, oh no, I'm not telling so-and-so about this. Oh, there's a reason. And so let's talk about that reason, right? So share your location when you're on a date. Can I just say that I have heard horror stories after horror stories about just horrific things happening. We used to think in terms of it happening to women, it happens to men too, where horrific things happen. Tell somebody where you are and share your location. And say, if I don't check in with you by 10 o'clock, I need you to call. That's just regular safety stuff. Be strong enough and confident enough to say, you're not for me. Right? I went out one time with a guy looking my absolute best of my whole life. He came in with a fanny pack on, and he brought a model train for me to look at. I know you're imagining this in that moment of my life. I sat there the whole time for dinner. Did I know I was never going to see this dude again?
Yes.
I sure knew this was not going anywhere, right? But I just didn't want to hurt his feelings. I mean, I thought he was pretty fragile. He had a fanny pack and a model train he brought me, right? Like, just super, super random. And it would have been nicer for me to just say right from the beginning, before he paid for dinner, right? Like, this isn't going to work. I appreciate you. We're in totally different spaces right now. But I didn't have it in me. I just thought I needed to be super nice to everyone. Be vulnerable enough to allow someone to know you. you know, when you're in the evaluation process, you're trusting another person to let you see the real them. You also need to be vulnerable and allow someone to see the real you, right? Because nothing is worse than when we counsel couples who've been married for 6 months and they're like, I had no idea that X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, well, you didn't know because she didn't let you know. And I'm sorry, right? But it just, I think it is a kindness to allow someone to know you.
And at that point, you can't ask how hard you want your life to be.
After you're married,
No,
yeah, because it's just as hard as it is.
it's just now you're in.
And again, that so often, I think we stumble into that with feeling unworthy, right? Where we're like, if someone knew that I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z, then they could never love me. Right? Shame. It's just shame. Where the reality is that 9 times out of 10, what you are feeling shameful about, most other people don't care. Right? I mean, shame is something that the devil does internally to us, not usually a relational block.
That's good.
All right, that's what I got. What are your questions? I'm ready. I'm stretching. What questions do y'all have?
Who should pay for a date?
So I don't have a hard and fast on this. I would say
I do.
so there are two. I have 2 schools of thought on it. Number one, for me, I had money issues, and I had dated men that would like take advantage of me financially, and so for me, it was important that the guy paid. Now, would I say that's a hard and fast rule? No. For me, it mattered, right? But I would also say that especially, you know, if you're 21, 22, 25, still trying to figure out how to pay your student loans, and you want to go out on a date, and, you know, the girl says, hey, let's go to, you know, I don't know, whatever. Let's go to Flipside, and I'll buy tonight. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that for me personally, because of some of the stuff that I lived through, absolutely, I was pretty insistent on guys paying.
I think it's an absolute conversation piece. I don't know that there is. I think there's preferences. I don't think that there's one hard and fast rule. So, but I do think that it's a conversation piece because I mean you got family of origin issues. You got all kinds of things that can be triggered or can be flare up without any conversation. If you're interested in knowing this person better, and I always believe that finances are a great place to start.
You think they should pay for the date forever till you're in covenant?
I wouldn't say forever, but on a first date, if a man can't even
First
buy my
date.
coffee, like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I felt
That to
that
me
way.
is disrespect.
Yeah, and I think some of it's generational, right? Like because we're probably close to the same age. Like, there's no way that even when I was 16, I would have gone out on a date where a guy didn't pay. Because that's just how it was, right? I think things look a little different now, but I think that, here's what I will say, Jill. I will say that as I was dating, if I went out with them multiple times, eventually I would offer to pay. But like first dates, I was in the same camp. Yeah,
I just wondered sometimes if I'm dismissing too early, because if you didn't stand up to greet me, and like you were seated and already in there had a seat when we went to go get coffee, and you didn't stand up to greet me, and you didn't even offer to pay for my coffee, I'm like, I'm out, like right away, like I don't want to speak to you.
But I would never say you're dismissing too early. I think you're being authentic to yourself.
you're just evaluating. If it is important to you
I was like, ooh,
that they show you
yeah,
respect
right.
in that way, and they don't do it on day 1,
That's good.
then 10 years from now, I promise you they're not doing it.
Correct.
So, but
Discernment.
yeah,
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? And there may not be anything wrong with them not doing it. It just doesn't work for you. And that's where if we take the emotion out of it, and it's like, oh, not, oh, they're so disrespectful. It's just like, look, I expect a level of respect that you are not doing organically, and so this probably isn't going to work.
You know, I don't know I love the word, a level of respect. I think a level of behavior.
I could go for that.
I,
Either way.
I expect to be treated a certain way. Or,
Yeah.
Because I don't know that somebody buying a lunch is necessarily showing you that they respect you.
True. No, well, I just mean like standing up to greet her when she walks in. Yeah. But you're allowed to have those bars, right? Like if you need to make somebody jump through hoops, then make them jump through hoops.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
believe wholeheartedly in that.
I think that sometimes we start to diminish ourselves and say that we just need to accept whatever's given or trust that someone's just going to become who we want them to become. I think that that's our job. If you have expectations and you need things to be met, and I think that's okay to lay those all out there. Now, I don't think it's okay to sabotage someone. I don't think it's okay to entrap someone into a situation where you know they're going to fail, right? But if your expectation is, it really means a lot to me when I walk into a room and you stand up to greet me, right? I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
Yeah, and there's the interesting thing about that, Jill, and to everybody, there's a lot of cultural things involved in that we don't always know. Like Michelle and my mom went a year really at odds. Michelle was brought up in a household that, as a younger person, you never speak until you're brought into the conversation by the elders.
So you're spoken to.
Right? In an African American family, if you walk into the house with the matriarch and you don't immediately acknowledge her and speak to her, she will never speak to you. So you've got these cultural things also that are at play that matter. Like we're gonna get in the car and go down and see my dad, and I can assure you that if he's aware that we're coming, the front door will be open, and he'll just shout, "Come in," because if he opens the door for us, he ends up greeting us first, and that's a no-no. So there's all kinds of things like that you just, and if you're not comfortable with that, you're not comfortable with that. Done, right? It's okay.
I've started, I haven't been on a date recently, but like, when it is a first date, there's times if we're in an app or something, I will say, will you please wait outside for me until I arrive? Because I don't want to search for you when I get into a restaurant. And I was like, if you can't like wait for me and greet me
Come in
outside,
together.
I don't want to have to try to play seek and find when I get in there, you know?
I think all that's fine.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love that there are certain, from day one, there are certain things that I'm looking for in it because they're not emotional, they're factors, right? It's who I am and what I want. And if you can't do it, cool. We'll figure this out really quick.
What else we got?
The friends first mentality.
Yeah.
How do you feel about what would be some like maybe guiding principles? And when I say friends first, I think sometimes when I've said that, I'm speaking from an experience where I did say that to someone and then they said, "Oh, you rejected me." No, I wasn't trying to reject you. I was trying to be your friend first. I want to know who you are, things about you, how do we interact before I commit to say we're dating or whatever that is. Like I want to get to know you on a level because when you meet in an app, you're a stranger. You're a complete stranger. And to go, for me personally, to go into a dating situation, I want to evaluate really quickly. Do I want to go out with them again? Do I want to, like all these things played in my head. So it's like I want to do things right, and by saying like, hey, how do we create a friendship first mentality to see first if you even want to date, you know, so that you can understand where they feel like they are with God, or you know, all those kinds of things.
See, I would find, just me personally, I would find that very offensive, because when we meet for coffee, what is that? It's a date. So we've already, and I think it might be semantics, but it's the way it comes across. I think you're right with friends first, and I want to learn you and all that fun stuff. But if that's the case, then, and you're still holding me accountable to certain standards, then I've got a mismatch there. So I think that the saying friends first lowers my, because if, let's say that I have a friend that's a female who comes into a place, and I don't know that I stand up to greet her, but if you're my spouse or you're my date, I might stand up to greet you. So that, to me, just me personally, that sends a mismatch of expectations.
It's probably my self-protective vows. Thank you, I needed to hear that.
Well, and what I want you to know though is I want, see if you can change your language.
Yeah, that's all.
Because I don't think
I
you're
have
wrong.
from that time forward.
Yeah.
I will never say that again.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong, but I do think that Donald is right. If you're gonna talk about friends first, then no, buy your own coffee,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like that. Yeah,
Sweatpants.
yeah. I mean, it just you
It's not
can't
meant to
really
be.
have
It's
it both
a-
ways. But I think that
It's a
same.
meant to not get into the physical, like love.
Right.
Now I gotta act a certain
And
way.
so I
because
think
it's like,
that changing the language, and look, I am so excited about meeting you and getting to know you, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page. I want to kind of take this one step at a time and really get to know you,
But that's
right?
dating.
That is dating, but I don't think that's different from what she's saying.
I agree with you.
Now, the other thing I want to say, just fundamentally, friendship is the core to all good relationships, right? Like even when we talk about marriage, friendship is the baseline to that. So you're not wrong in what you want. I just think that the world has a stigma around we're just friends, right? Like that whole phrase is a turnoff to guys. So I think that just working on the nuance of the language might be helpful, but you're not wrong in what you're wanting.
And that's what I was trying to say, so forgive me if I
Yeah.
didn't say that.
No, but you said it very clearly that it wouldn't work for you. It would be offensive.
it would be
to let-
offensive, and,
Yeah.
and to me it was like, oh, I did offend them, and I wasn't meant to. It meant
Right.
to be like, wait, slow down, like this is
Yeah.
getting
The
too much.
language
Yeah.
creates a mismatch between what I thought was going on in my head and what
Right.
you're saying to me, so,
That's a great question.
no, I think one.
And the God's honest truth is, if you can meet someone that you're friends with and end up pursuing a relationship with them, that's ideal,
Yeah.
right? So, but if you're
That's
just
why I
meeting
want that.
someone,
That's why I want
yeah.
that.
So if you're just meeting someone, you're kind of doing it at the same time. But I think you're perfectly fine to say, I want this to go just slow, because I really want to get to know you, and I don't want to get caught up in something, this or whatever. I can think of better language later, I'm sure. Yep. What else we got?
I wondered about if you guys had, as far as your faith, like dating prayerfully, how will we, people say, like, they wanna be married, right? And then it's
Yes,
like,
sir.
that's an automatic match, or I believe in God, I follow Jesus, I chase, right? That looks different to me than it does to you or for whoever. And I just wondered, like, how do you navigate when there are going to be differences in how that works into your life? I guess I'm trying to picture that. Like, I'm in a wedding in June, and the groom is my bestie's fiance, and all 7 of the groomsmen are single, and they're like, oh, she's single, and we all want to be married, and right, and I'm like, they're like, you have your choice, like, people want to set you up, right, and I'm like, they don't even know me, like, I just posted a meme about it, like, you know.
That's funny.
So it's just like, how do you? I feel like everyone wants to set you up because that's with good intention behind it, but like, I don't know, like, how did you navigate what the differences were in your
Well, so
faith?
two things. I think we're still navigating it,
Okay,
right? That I will never say that Donald and I 100% theologically agree
okay,
because we don't, and I'm not sure we should,
right,
right? I would say, we talked a little bit about it last week, that what I would consider dogma, big, universal, what I just think of as truths, we agree on, right? Doctrine, pretty fundamentally, we agree on doctrine things.
yeah,
There's lots of opinion that we don't agree on, and we can have healthy conversation about it. The answer on how you know slowly, and you know by watching them. I think I said this last week, but I stand by it. People used to ask me, how did you know Donald was going to be a good husband? And the answer was, I didn't. I didn't know. I knew he was chasing after Jesus, and I thought he could be, but I didn't know that he was going to be until probably 2 or 3 years in, was when I knew. Because we talk about this whole, two flesh becoming one, and the oneness doesn't happen just because you said I do, right? Oneness takes time. And so that's why it's a process and it's a journey. And so in dating, how I think, a declaration is a good start. But like I said last week, just because someone tells you they're a Christian could mean 1,000 different things, right? And so you need to watch them. You need to watch how they treat people. You need to watch how they talk about their faith, right? I know a lot of people right now who say, yeah, I'm a Christian, but I don't believe in organized religion. Church isn't for me, right? Well, okay, do you, but that doesn't work for me, right? Or there's a lot of, there's a lot of Christian nationalism going on where, we have to sort of dissect whether, are you a Jesus following Christian, or is there's a lot of power Christianity happening right now, right? And the only way you know is to get involved in it, and to ask a lot of questions, and to watch how they treat people, and to just be really aware of how it feels for you, regardless of how you land on it, right? Like I'm not even saying that one is good and one is bad, but I would say that just figuring out if you match, and the only way to do that is time. Yeah.
I apologize, my brother's checking on my dad, and there's some things going on, so I apologize.
Yay. What else we got?
How do we start to navigate the difference between, you talked about a little bit, how men are and how women are. Like women are so much more emotional and we have this vision and what we're taught and thought, and men have a very different mindset. So
Clear as day.
Yeah, I mean, I think, how do you navigate it? I don't know. Like, this is a question since the beginning of time. I think it's complicated, right? I don't think it's intended to be easy for a reason. We are very different and we need each other. I think that, okay, can I make a book recommendation that is not a Christian book, but super helpful? So, Think Like a Man, Act Like a Woman.
Good movie too.
Good movie. Super helpful,
If
right?
you need the quick version of it.
If you need the quick version of it, it's a very entertaining movie, right? But I think that the more we can learn about how the opposite
But
sex...
there's a ton, if you go back and watch it, there's a ton of truth in it.
Yeah, I'm not just recommending it because I think you're bored, right? Like, it is not a Christian book. It is fundamentally solid. I think the more you can learn about how the opposite sex thinks, the better. It doesn't mean you have to change a single thing, but it does help you just learn and say, oh, the reason he was offended that I paid for dinner that night is because I was pointing out to him he didn't have any money. Now, I just want to go to dinner because it was my birthday, right?
And I didn't care. I didn't care it was your birthday. Don't take that away from me.
That's right. And so it's stuff like that, right? Where I just didn't know.
So you should have talked about that, is what you're saying, at that,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
if we were mature enough to do so. And that's what I'm getting ready to say to answer Joe's question. I said clear as time. I said clear as time, and I truly mean that because and this is just me speaking from a man's perspective. Okay, if you're clear about what you want, and I have no vision for it at all, you absolutely will scare me off and I'll be gone. And that achieved the right goal, didn't it? Right? So when I say clear as time, I truly mean that. If you are willing to really stand on what you want and say it, you'll either have a guy press into it fully, kind of sort of press into it, or will hightail it. And when I mean kind of sort of press into it, it's kind of like, yeah, cool, whatever. Let me tell you about a guy. Okay? I'll tell you about Donald. I won't tell you about that. I'll tell you about Donald. That's cool. I can convince her otherwise. Right? So you truly
And
have
he did that to me for about 3 years.
you truly have to stand on principle. And at some point, if I am working, okay, here we go. Probably should turn it off. If I am working the game, saying I can convince you, and you stand on your principle, sooner or later there's a better game and an easier game to be played. Right? Now, was the right objective achieved? Yeah, the right objective still was achieved. You learned, you evaluated, you figured out. So, 2 out of the 3 scenarios means that we can't live in scarcity idea, and that we need to stand on principles. And at that point, we are truly, if we will give it 5, 7, 10 days, we are truly letting people self-select. And I believe wholeheartedly, I do it with my employees, I do it with kids I coach, if you will stay in the game long enough, people will self-select either in or out. That's just my personal opinion. And guys are not, Donald was not built for a long-term game. Like, Donald was not built to chase you and try to convince you that I was better than your principles for that long. I really was.
I was just gonna ask, should a man, you hear all these things, men are pursuers, are they really? Where are they?
They are, well, see, they are pursuers of ease.
That's the problem.
Well, so
Not the
no.
problem, not the problem.
Okay, so let me
That's
let me get rid of this whole fallacy. I think that women are taught to say they're low maintenance, right? That's just crap, right?
Crap.
It's just crap, right? Like, first of all,
Absolute crap.
I'm not sure we are,
No.
and I don't think that we get a big gold star on our forehead if we were, right? Like, who cares? If I'm high maintenance, then I'm high maintenance, right? That's about like classical conditioning, right? So I think generally men are willing to pursue things that feed who they are and what their needs are. Okay? So if they are getting their needs met, which a lot of times, because you guys are the only people here, right? Not everyone in the world is taking our class. So sometimes if they don't know how to say what their needs are, but their needs are still being met by you in a dating relationship, they're going to pursue you.
My mom used to tell all my girlfriends that, he's never going to be serious with you because he gets his cake and eat it too.
Okay.
She wasn't wrong. So that's what I mean by standing on principle. Because if they would have stood on principles, oh man, especially if that is all I was pursuing, there was an easier way to go get that.
You can't make someone be ready for more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you just find out quicker.
Mm-hmm. And
I think just it goes back to the social media thing. Like we're fed so much stuff. Like you
Right.
don't then know how you're supposed to act or how they're supposed to act. If like what's true and what's not true in those principles. And so I've come to be a very much more secure, confident person who God says I am, and that is a turnoff for a lot of people.
mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Listen,
Right, like, and
not-
it should be.
not everyone data would be willing to sit right here,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
No one.
And even me on day one.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, I think that you being empowered and confident in who you are, not all men can handle that either. Okay? Or not all people. I won't even say men, right? Just people in general. There are people who are attracted to that, who are like, oh my God, I love someone who just knows who they are, right? I feel that way, where I'm just like, I just want to watch them work the world. And there are people who feel subpar because of it. And if you are trying to get involved with or date someone who can't handle you as who you are, well, that's just not your person.
Well, and this goes back a little bit and across the room, and I don't want to just talk to Jill because I don't want her to feel uncomfortable.
Like we're just-
Oh, you can talk to me. I'm the one putting the things out there because I think I've had a lot of life experience with this and like.
One of the things that, and I'll go back to Michelle's comment about get out there and do things. I believe that one of the hardest things for people to do, but one of the most successful things that people do in that scenario, Michelle did it in a bad way. I'm going to tell the story, but it's a bad way.
I
Is
don't
to
even know what you're about to say.
is to go and be in rooms where you're not the top of the room, right? Because especially in like Jill, you and I are not that different. Where I think people see confidence and see all these things. Well, I have to put myself in rooms where I'm not the top of the room to become approachable. If I'm always the top of the room, I'm never approachable.
I've been
Right.
told I'm intimidating.
Yeah.
I don't think I am, but okay.
So one of the things that Michelle and one of her girlfriends did is, what was it? It was what was the steakhouse over at Easton?
J. Alexander.
Smith and
No, Smith and Williamson's, okay? So instead of going to happy hour at Gala, they started going to happy hour at Smith and Williamson's, right? Well, why would they do that? Well, there's a different caliber of person at Smith and Williamson's than was at OP Gala. So, I mean, as you go through this process, part of that is that, you know what, if you're a chess player, don't join the checkers club.
Yeah.
You gotta put yourself out where there are people that, and know yourself well enough to know, okay, these are the type of people I find attractive and the type of people that find me attractive, and then put yourself in those rooms.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
Hamilton says be in a room where it happens.
That's right. What else?
Masculine and femininity is a term that comes up a lot these days.
As far as what?
Just the way that you like
Not
girls are supposed to be soft. Girls are supposed to be soft and
Yeah.
flowy and feelings, and men are supposed to be the hunters, critical thinkers, like.
So,
I think that's
Don't-
I think that's generational thing. I don't think that's true today. And from an age, I think it's true still generationally today.
or people want it to be true generally.
Generationally, but like the studies all say that there's a real cutoff, probably at 32
At
or
this
so,
point, yeah.
where there is a vast difference in the way men are operating at 32
Yeah, I just, for me personally, I don't put a lot of weight in any of that. Because two things. Number one, I am pretty.
Unique.
Thank you.
Well, I mean,
I
that,
follow up questions, but
but-
I think that.
that means most of what you read, most of what Michelle would read about the women and about men would not really apply to her.
That's right.
Right?
So I am a strong presence in the room, right? And so if I'm counting on a guy to come in and be a stronger presence in the room, that room is too full, right? So I think that, you know, for me, it's never really jived in that way, where I thought I had to take on, well, I used to think I had to take on like this feminine role. It's just not who I am. If you are full of crap, I'm going to tell you in 100 different ways, right? Like I'm just not wired that way. And you know, the other thing, I think, like one of my uncles is just this amazing man and just sweet, caring father, so maternal in nature, right? Would not fit any of the like masculinity classifications. If you
So
met
these
him
3
straight
years
up,
to realize he wasn't gay.
that's right. He's been married to my aunt for, I don't know, 35
I
years.
couldn't quite figure out that relationship
Right.
because I
Where-
knew he was gay.
Absolutely. People think he is absolutely gay. He is not. It's just who he is.
Soft and
Soft spoken,
loving
just,
and wonderful man.
yes, but doesn't fit any of the stereotypes, right? Like he was the
But she doesn't
stay-at-home
either.
dad. And no,
No,
because
she doesn't
she's
either.
a CPA hard ass, right? Like you ask her questions, you better be ready to hear a dissertation about something, right? Like it's just, it's. So I don't buy into that very much. All that to say, I think everything could work, right? Either whether there's a more bend toward masculinity or femininity or whatever. I don't know. I think that people are people and that we are all built on some sort of spectrum in it.
I believe a lot of the writings, are still way too generalized, and they really haven't changed. A lot of the writings, the general writings, haven't changed as our country's socioeconomic system has changed, right? Because you know, we know a handful of people where, make no mistake about it, the wife is the stronger, more driving, more focused person in the relationship, and obviously I don't have, obviously I don't have any issues with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But if you read about that, you would say, wow, you know, that's really unusual. And I think that it's becoming more and more common. That's just my personal.
Yeah, like weird stuff, right? Like Donald will get choked up over TV shows.
I do. I sit on the couch right there and I cry over TV shows.
And I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you?
And I cry.
It's a TV show, right? So just like
Extraction. I'm crying.
extracted, yeah. So I'll get into his feelings. His one feeling gets activated by that. But so I don't know. I don't put too much weight on it.
But I only do that, and this is very interesting, not only with Jill, but everyone. I only do that when I'm in the safety and security of our house and work. Like, if anyone else is here, I don't do it. So let me ask you this. We can watch the same thing on television, right? Someone else is here, I won't do it. Why is that? Trying to
Feel
live up to some,
judged or shamed or
that's right,
something.
trying to live up to some stereotype instead of being myself.
I recall you saying, as a woman, if you are interested in someone, show that or say that.
Yeah.
And that was a relief because I'm like, oh, I've done that plenty of times in my life.
Yeah, I don't think that there's a like hard and fast. You have to wait for a man to decide that he's going to ask you out. I think that, you know,
especially if,
Shoot your shot.
especially if you are generally speaking, if you are an attractive and you have a presence, you know, no different than the middle school dance.
Wouldn't do it.
The dudes would be standing on the wall just watching you out of fear.
And let's go back. We talked about it like a few slides ago. So we talked about, you know, we have this change that's happening where men are being infiltrated with pot porn and video games. So they're becoming more isolated. They don't know how to do this. And then women who are coming into their own, they are financially independent, they are self-confident, sometimes guarded, they've got their own set of issues, right? So I just feel like it's the natural way of how things are evolving. It's okay for a woman to go and say, no, I would love to date you, right? And we talked about it too, there's biblical precedent for it. Absolutely what happened with Ruth and Boaz. We talk about this amazing love story, and the reality is she pursued him.
Well, and I mean, as a hunter, dude wouldn't come home until he bagged something, right? Because he had to provide for his family. So if I'm not sure I'm going to get a yes, I'm not asking.
Interesting, yeah. And I need to
See, the
know,
guys are like, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
That's right.
as a strong female who isn't,
That's true.
yeah.
But not a problem. It's just the makeup how they are.
And the only person you can change is you. And so if you know that and you're interested in someone, go for it.
Do it.
Like I think that women spend a lot of time being irritated because guys aren't doing what they want them to do.
Yes.
Then take it out of their hands and
Do
go
it.
do
Yes,
it.
do it. Because honestly, I'm just gonna be fully honest here, as I'm using that as a test. I need to know that this man can take that. Because I'm a strong woman, I have my stuff together. You're gonna have to add value to a whole lot of areas in my life for to even be in my life. That's not the place that I was always in. I've been messy and sketchy plenty of years. But now I'm like, if the man is gonna crumble over that, like, he's not for me. So for me, it's like, this is who I am.
Ride my coattails, let's go. If you're not willing to do
There's
it.
your opportunity, and then you will pursue me. Like, I'm not gonna keep at you. Then you might pursue me, or then you won't. I'm telling you, Jill, people aren't approaching you because you're beautiful and attractive, and what'd you say?
You have a
I'm
presence.
too
You have a,
confident.
You're not
a
too
presence.
confident.
No, you
That
have
would
a
be the
presence.
wrong way to say it, Jill. I wouldn't say you
Okay,
very
I've been
wrong.
told that I come across as intimidating.
Well, I would agree with
So
that.
I have some ideas for you.
Okay.
I think that you need to hang out in different places. I think that you need to go. I think you need to take.
Smith and Walensky.
Do
Yeah,
it.
literally. Like
They don't
I
exist
think,
anymore, but we're going to Ocean Club.
I think that you need to go sit at the bar at J. Alexander's or someplace like that. Okay.
Me neither.
Don't drink.
We'll get our glass of milk.
And
You'll have to go.
That's
we're
great.
getting a glass of
Will.
milk. Okay,
Absolutely.
Hit on
And
that.
I just think you need
Oh,
you
man,
need to get an
Jill.
appetizer and you need to sit and you need to wait
Yeah.
because I don't
And
believe
not one day.
and not one day. No, like every Friday for 4 weeks, you need to just go and do it. And I
Let's do it.
promise you, you're in the wrong rooms. And when you surround yourself with men who cannot handle strong, confident women, well, no,
Which are most.
a lot. I don't know if I'd use the word most, but a
Most.
lot. Yeah.
I'm not trying to, I don't want to be the one who's trying to overpower. It's just innate in like who I am.
So don't change at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I'm struggling with that masculine and feminine. It's
And,
like, I don't know.
allow him to meet you where you're at instead of you meeting him where he's at.
And the softness, I think, comes later, right? Like
In
in
covenant.
safety.
In
Right.
covenant.
So that's the next question for me is like, how do I not jump to that role immediately in dating? Because that's what I've always done and it doesn't work.
So I would say there's two things. One is you got a list, and two is you got a community.
Yes, okay, got it. Which speaking of the list and community, I did have my mom do a list and it is very eye-opening because it's different than mine in several ways.
A list for you or just for herself?
For me.
So the other thing I will add to that
I like
is how do you not jump into that?
Yeah.
You get your needs met by your community, not turning to this potential dating partner to meet some hole you have.
Okay, yes. Because for me, it's like, how do I know what it's going to be like? Well, also, I'm most comfortable in that role. I'm immediately going to be nurturing and caregiving and all of this, right? Helping you with your life problems. That's my problem. However, I'm hearing that that's not the role that I should be in dating.
Not, I would say not at the beginning.
Right.
Not at the beginning because, and again, if you're a strong woman, so in sales, okay, there's a concept in sales that a salesman will only sell to plus or minus 10% of his income. Okay, so if I make, which is why salespeople make so much money. If I make $60,000, I would never make a sale to somebody that makes 80 because it's too uncomfortable for me. Okay, so if you know that this dude is truly functioning in 10%, plus or minus 10% of where he thinks he's at, you're up here, and you show an interest of him, he's all of a sudden just, yeah, baby, please, and now you're gonna solve his problems for him? Jackpot!
Yeah, they're in love.
Jackpot!
Yikes.
So you have to stay in the position of evaluation. You have to stay in the position of evaluation. Because like one of the things that because you have that tendency that I would love, and I'm never gonna be prescriptive to a list, but I believe Harl strongly in them. One of the things I would love to see on your list is that he can make his own plans. He can solve, like one of the things that's on my list
Jotting that down.
was that I need to be with somebody that would schedule the time away in my calendar, not depend on me to do that all the time. Take some of those responsibilities of building a relationship off of me. So I would say that because that's your tendency, what I would be evaluating for is he pushing back when I'm trying to solve? And if he's just letting me run over him,
Doesn't work.
I'm not saying it doesn't work.
Well, I'm telling you it doesn't
I'm
work.
not gonna say it doesn't work. It works for him for sure. But
Oh, sure.
And you gotta figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Because some people might really like that. Like, I dated a guy who just was so easygoing. Drove me crazy.
Yeah.
It was just like so friggin' annoying where just no matter what I wanted or when I was available or whatever, everything was fine. Yeah, no, that's fine. You wanna do that? No, I don't wanna do that. I'm not gonna see that. Oh, that's fine. No, it's fine. No problem. I know your life is hard. I'm like, dude, stop. Stop
Yes.
agreeing with me.
Amen.
Right? I was just so put off by it. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
I didn't do that.
No.
Amen.
No.
We knew it wasn't you.
Right, like I needed someone who would stand face to face with me and say,
Yes.
you're wrong.
Yeah,
Right.
I
Right?
do that.
Yeah, that is true. So I think that now I think this dude probably would make an amazing spouse to someone. It just wasn't me. So I think that
And I think that's really important, is that you're not judging and saying you're not worthy, right? You're saying it doesn't work for me, which is a completely different statement. You're still a son or a daughter of the king. You still have tremendous value. You still have a calling in your life. It's just not in my life. And that's okay.
is truly the evaluation, right? Because lots of times you'll date someone, break up with them, and then their next person they date, they marry, right? Like, that's just, why? Because the timing's right, or it's the person meshes with them, or,
Or
you
you
know,
gave them the last piece of the puzzle.
also
You
true.
want them how they think.
Also true, right? I don't like thinking about that. That makes me cringe a little bit. Oh my god.
Put the work in.
But I think yes, I formed you, and then this
Yeah.
other
Now
chick.
you're ready.
But I do think that we don't have all the answers to all that, which is why you can only authentically be you,
Yes.
right? And how someone else reacts, handles it, whatever their choice is in it, you don't have control over that. And so, raising the bar, hoops to jump through, being confident in who you are, I think all of those things are okay. I think starting any relationship, whether you start out as a dating relationship or not, and building a basis of friendship, absolutely just critical. Because ultimately, and we've said this before, right? Most of our marriage is about friendship and hanging out. Right? Like, Donald worked super, super late last night, and it's like, I don't know, 12:30, and I'm calling him, because we only have one car right now, our windshield's busted. I'm like, do you want me to come pick you up? Right? That's just a friendship thing. And no, he Ubers home. But that's a different issue altogether, right? I just think that knowing who you are and what you want, there's nothing to be ashamed of there. There's nothing to try to minimize there. It's who you are. It's who you are.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Going back to like women shooting their shot and stuff like that. What would that look like practically for a woman who's like interested in someone who like specifically in the context of like a close friendship? Like I talked to you about that like last week. So like there's a guy that I'm like close friends with that I've known for a couple years now, and I've been interested in him for a while now. And so I'm like, do I say anything? Do I not? Like, so how would a woman navigate that?
So my I had a cousin. She passed away, but I just love her. She was in a like what would be like a community group for us with a guy for 6 years. Had a huge crush on him. He's this like big wig attorney. Just was like, no, I think we'd be good together. I'm gonna do this. So she said to him, hey, you want to go to dinner? You want to hang out? Right? And she took him to dinner and just sat down and just laid it out. And for her whole thing was, I'm going to feel angsty about this until I have an answer. And so there's no reason for me to continue to angst. Because even if the answer is no, well then I asked and I put it out there. And again, the obedience portion of all that is really on you, not on their reaction. But I just think you get them alone somewhere and just lay it out there. Yeah, you know what? I know for a while now I've just been having feelings for you, and I'm just kind of wondering if you would be interested in dating. And then you sit and you breathe heavy and you go buy a sheet cake on the way home to eat with a fork, right? Like whatever it is you need to do, you just you get through it. And it's uncomfortable. Again, there is nothing that we're talking about where I am claiming there should be a comfortable moment. But the reality is you're going to carry this around until you get the answer.
Yeah.
And if you are waiting for him to come up with the idea, even if he has it, we don't know what he's thinking, right? So I believe you just get in there and you lay it out. Now, I will tell you.
Welcome to the guy side of the equation.
I want to hear what a guy has to say.
Right.
Because when a girl says, I have
Welcome to
feelings,
Because what you're experiencing, what every guy walk around doing, and you're like,
So,
how does a girl approach it? A girl approaches the same way a dude do. You gotta push yourself out there. There's
So,
no
Jill,
difference.
in my opinion, do you know how much a guy would love for a girl to come and say, I'm attracted to you? And I'm
So
I have
bad.
feelings.
So bad.
Attracted, I agree with attracted, but to say I have feelings, that is beyond just
Okay, so-
there might be-
Which even makes it way better.
The issue is,
Yes.
the issue
Like every
is
guy
that-
I've ever talked to is like, please God, let a woman come and ask me out.
The word
Way better.
It's language. It's language,
It
right?
is, but it matters.
Because it
Words
matters.
matter.
Because this is where
Write it down, China. Write it down.
when you say the word feelings to guys, that just
Too much.
their feelings. Oh my gosh, what's that? I like to go out and see whether or not we have any chemistry to date. Oh my gosh.
I've never talked to a guy that has not, like, would not love for a woman to come and say, I'm attracted to you, can we go do
I
something?
think I was reacting to the word feelings because that meant it was a level beyond just a hey,
And
I might
feelings
like you.
might have-
I have
feelings might have been bad,
It's
but-
like, wait a minute.
Yeah, no, like, I don't know that I've ever had a one-on-one with a man who would not have just gone nuts over that.
Yeah.
Even if they weren't interested. Like, that's the thing. I will say this about women. Men reject women much nicer than women reject men.
Correct.
Let me just say that 100%.
That's why welcome to the man side of the relationship.
Because a man, regardless of who you are, will be unbelievably flattered. Right? Like, his ego is built because you took that step. And so there will be a level of kindness and compassion
Oh my god.
where women are just like,
Yes, we are. Correct.
right?
This is all correct.
And so that's like, it's a whole,
Which is
that's what I always say, we're real here, right? We're gonna be real. So I think that you are probably worried about it on a level that you don't need to be worried about it on.
Yeah.
And men are great about not making it weird too, right? Like 3 weeks later, they're not thinking about it.
Yeah, that's true.
Can we get an update on this?
I know.
When's the next time you're gonna see him? What you gonna say?
I don't know. He's like always busy, but yeah.
You're the prize.
Hey, I know you're busy. Would you set aside some time for me? I'd love to take you to dinner.
Oh gosh. Oh no.
No.
Like, that's too big of a commitment.
But I'm serious. I'm like, I don't want to drop the bomb. And I've been on like a Googling frenzy about this guy. It's like been crazy. I've just been like on Reddit and stuff, and like people are like, don't confess on this, like do that. And I'm like, oh my god. So like, I don't know.
No, I would disagree with 100% of that because you're going to stay on Reddit. So, in my opinion, you're going to stay on Reddit, you're going to stay on Google, you're going to stay on this
That's facts.
beyond when this relationship would either run its course or you would be covenant. So now the next relationship that comes, you're on Reddit, you're on Google, still on this relationship. So you're allowing this to monopolize everything else and every other opportunity.
Preach.
And he's fine right now. I don't know where he is or what he's doing, but he's not thinking about this.
Oh, he might be,
Maybe.
but not at this depth.
Yeah.
He might be and he's not certain, but
I believe it's better to know than not know. And
Me too.
may you shock him a little bit? Maybe. But I
I was
promise
shocked
you.
when she said, I don't want to see you again without a ring.
Yeah, he was. He was a little taken back.
I was like,
How long was this though? How long into?
Oh, we dated 5 years.
Ow.
Yeah.
It was time.
just like, oh.
He was still shocked.
not long enough.
Should have been shot.
It was absolutely shocking because you guys have to remember it was absolutely shocking because the deal is one of the reasons that we started dating was so neither one of us wanted to get married.
Sure. Good. Yeah.
Right? You guys forget that
Well,
part.
Yeah.
listen, Adam. I kind of flipped the script on him in year 3, so it was still 2 years after that.
You did
So
not say. You started
you were not
engaging.
clear.
You
I
were
was
not
still-
clear. Because hey,
Yeah.
hey,
I was
Cheyenne,
nice.
I needed it written out. You said, you know what? I'd like to do life together. I'm like, cool, we can do life together. I'm like, what do you mean?
That's exactly how it went.
Right? And then you said marry. I was like, whoa, what?
What is going on?
I don't want to see you again without a ring.
What happened to her? She just lost her mind.
Okay, this brings up a good
Rich
point
Nathan.
because some people say, or what you hear in the out there is like, if it's your person, you'll know right away.
Yeah.
God'll make it happen, and like, if you know, and like, you'll know you'll be married within a year.
I don't believe any of that.
I don't either.
So first of all, I don't
That's
believe
a
in it
soulmate
being your person,
conversation.
right? I also don't believe that God is making us do nothing with relationships,
Because we have free will.
right? Will you know in a year? Maybe. I hope so. Right? I don't
Because
I don't
God
like
intends to date
dating.
forever.
Yeah, I don't like dating for like indefinite amounts of time. I think it just doesn't serve a good point. You need to be better at evaluating. So I think that all that puts undue pressure that's unnecessary on us, right? And pulling God into it,
Just super spiritualized.
Yes. I think God needs to be pulled into your life personally. But asking God to like give his blessing on a relationship, God it does not care who you marry. He cares about who you are as an individual and who you are as a spouse. And his concern is with you, right? When we get to heaven, God is not going to ask me about Donald's
John and I
stuff.
don't walk up hand in hand to be judged.
No. And he's never going to ask me about what Donald did or didn't do. It won't be on the test. All that's going to be on the test is what I did or didn't do. Right? And so I think that we have a tendency to over spiritualize because we somehow believe that makes it more special. And it just doesn't. What's special about it is that God gave us a framework for loving people, and it works for everyone.
Very good.
Mine's head talking.
Thank you.
Trying to ask a girl's better at femininity than me to help you out, but
I know, I'm like, you're saying it, cause what he's not gonna do is show up in your face with another girl, and you've already evaluated some stuff, get in there, figure it out.
Because this is just my impression. Just my impression. That would feel like a breakup.
Yes,
hurt.
Because you're so far down the rabbit hole.
you gotta do it.
I hate this. I really hate it because, like, and I was telling you this, Michelle, like, I never ever saw him as, like, more than a friend when he was first met. You know, it's just solely just been, like, brother and sister, like, you know, just good friendship, good vibes.
What box doesn't he check?
There you go.
What box doesn't he check?
Well, and
We have an amazing friendship. How do you feel about dating? That's pretty easy.
Yeah,
you
cause
even
we're
know.
not in it, we're not the
Yeah.
ones doing it.
But I think that we
Right? You two are sitting around waiting for guys. So it's too strong.
listen at you.
I sometimes am a little too strong. I will literally, when some people message me on a thing, I said, "Are you asking me out?" Question mark, and they're like, "No, I was just seeing what you were doing this weekend."
WYD.
So ridiculous.
I'm done fed up.
That's right. I'll tell you what I'm not doing. Yeah, China, just do it. Just find out. And here's the thing. He may not ever have even considered it, but I promise you will.
Absolutely.
I promise you that when you say it, there's going to be a moment where he's like, oh, no,
wait a
can I
minute.
make this work?
Actually,
I can pull that.
hey.
I didn't know I could pull that.
Guys are just like that.
You're complimenting him, if nothing else, right? You're complimenting him.
You're putting so much weight on this that does not need to be there.
I'm just psyching myself out.
I know.
What are you
not,
scared
but
Rejection.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, everyone's afraid of.
I think so.
Including
Rejection and losing a friendship.
which I almost promise you won't happen
Yeah.
because again, the guys have like the Dory, memory. They're just like, oh no, because forever he will be telling this story. This girl came and told me that she wanted to date me, right? Like this is like it's a
Here's the deal.
pride moment.
And then if you got a cookout in 2 weeks, and you
Invite.
say, hey, you want to come? I'd be like, yeah. You got food? You got food?
Trying to do that in a cookout? Oh, I'm about to schedule one. You guys coming? Yep.
Yeah, I just feel scared because like he's super great, like super great.
So are you.
Yes.
But yeah. But like luckily, like I think the friendship is solid enough, and he's like solid enough. Like where I don't think he would like look at me differently. It's just getting beside myself.
It's exposing.
Yeah.
It's hurts
And it's
people.
like it's been suppressed for so long, but now it's like, hey, like let me out.
He he's living rent free in your head right now.
Amen.
And the issue with that is, to Donald's point, he's taken up a lot of your emotional energy. And so it will feel like a breakup.
That's good.
So I encourage you to press the play button. What I will say about my cousin, okay, so she had this conversation with this guy, and they were married within 6 months. He just didn't think about it. He was busy and was just like, oh no, Jen's cool, whatever. Nope. Then she had this whole conversation. He was like, oh. Yeah.
In my terminology, he said, I can pull that.
Yeah. And then, yeah, they were married like within 6 months.
I mean, it's today's society, I believe, with the busyness, the changing social economics, so much of it, some of the base rules have changed. That doesn't mean that you have to change your expectations or your rules. What it may mean is that you're playing in a smaller ball field, which is okay, because you're really only looking for one. And if you're pursuing marriage, or if you're wanting to go to marriage. So I say that, again, maybe from probably just a guy's perspective to the guys and to the gals, is that if this is a desire, if it's to be, it's up to me. And you kind of got to put the work in and make it happen.
It's hard, it's uncomfortable,
And
there's tension.
change the rooms you're in. If you find yourself like, oh my gosh, this is trash, then don't go back to that space. Go to a different space. Change the rooms that you're in.
Yep.
And if you're online and they want to take you to Scully's instead of Smith and Walensky, you probably know right there. The answer is no.
I do like kickball teams, volleyball teams. Heard great stories about some of that. Bingo nights, trivia nights.
Things that, and the key.
Sporting events is where men are at, ladies.
The key about those is that they're repetitive. And the issues of repetitive, easy encounter. Sporting events are where guys are at, and what I would say about that, Jim, just a slight twist on it, is that I would lock into tickets, into season tickets, so you know who you're going to be sitting around, instead of just randomly going, because if you randomly go, you never know who you're going to sit next to, and you never know whether or not you're going to encounter the same person again. So it's truly about trying to create repetitive encounters.
That's not a pickup line. Do you have an iPhone? Zip. Now you have my contact. What do you think? What do you think?
I think that's a falsehood of who you are. That's way too easy.
underselling. That's a bait and switch
That's
moment.
way too easy.
Like, does she want payment?
You have to ask, and I got the digits? Wait a minute.
That is true. You gotta work harder than that. I do make somebody work. I think that's part of the problem.
I don't think it's a problem.
Well, like you
No.
said, they're self-selecting.
Yes, right. That's correct. I believe wholeheartedly in self-select.
But it makes it seem slim, the biggins.
That's okay.
I've done one out with 100.
You only need one.
I know. It's hard.
It is. Well, it's hard because you don't enjoy it, right? And that's okay too. But if you want what's on the other side of it, you just keep doing it.
Well, and Jill, you said it 100 times in here. I've got life behind me. I've had experience
probably used to repeat a lot of the same stuff, but now that I know who I am, I think, and I'm more secure in who I am, is I don't repeat as much.
That's good.
But what I will say is like what I've learned along the way. I used to want somebody to pick me, choose me. Like I would probably put myself in a position to prove myself, versus I'm not there anymore. And if I want to go out for an evening, let's say Shar and I go out. I'm not going out to pick up men nor see if a man is looking at me. I'm going out because I want to spend time with Shar. And if someone comes along the way, awesome, I might interact with them. But my purpose for going out is no longer who else is going to be there.
I would say that if you want to date, at times, sometimes you need to go out purposely for who else is going to be there.
Just a healthy
Fair.
relationship.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes.
Anything
You
else?
guys are great.
You guys are great.
You guys.
I would truly love to do more conversation like we did today and all the time. So I think that's where the real stuff happens, and then basic conversation back in biblical. So I really appreciate you guys sharing.
You guys ever thought about hosting like a mingling event?
I don't need one. I think that
That's
causes
fine.
more problems than it were for me.
Fair.
No,
Yeah, that's good.
we'll do some stuff. We do some stuff.
Yeah.
We do some stuff. This is still new at Crossing Ground, but we do
Yeah.
some stuff here.
I'm so grateful you guys continue to show up, and you guys have been great. So thank you for trusting us to do all this with you.
Yeah. Cool.
And you all have my contact information, so if you have questions, we're around.
We're around.
Yep.
Not going anywhere.
Yep.
Please take some food because we're getting ready to leave.
Yep, whatever they don't take, I'm taking to West Virginia.
But I just put dark on the roots and the grows.
Yeah, 'cause Shannon's not here to take it all to Grace.
My orange.